show your support to my husband, Xiyue Wang. And I would like to especially thank Mikey and others from the Free Xiyue Wang Working Group for their hard work to make this rally happen today, and your great advocacy for Xiyue, which has become an important support for us and to keep our spirits high no matter what happens in our life. Thank you so much. This August marked the 3rd anniversary of his unjust detention. I'm quite distressed by the reality that our lives have turned into an endless struggle in the constant swirl of geopolitical tensions. Iranian authorities has deliberately fabricated espionage allegations out of my husband's academic research and used him as a tool in their foreign policy. Actually, since Foreign Minister Zarif's recent interview with NPR News, when he was specifically asked about the status of my husband's case, Xiyue's name had appeared in the news every single day in the past week, either in Iran's demand for a global prisoner swap or in our State Department's remarks on their maximum pressure policy on Iran. It is typically confusing for me to either stay more optimistic about the situation because my husband's name eventually, after 3 years, draws more media attention, or I should be more cautious about any fake hope that could easily let me down again, like searching light in a black hole. I feel powerless after having bustled and hustled around for weeks, months, and now over 3 years. But I still cannot find any sign of any dialogue between Iran and the United States. And that would be the only way for a resolution of Xiyue's case and eventually bring him home again. By now, Xiyue has been in jail almost tripling the time the American diplomats were held hostage between 1979 and 1981. And he could be kept there until 2026 when his 10-year sentence ends. Today, I still remember clearly those fateful days at the beginning of all of this crisis. At 2:20 a.m., August 7, 2016, I was awakened by a midnight phone call from my husband in Tehran. 3 weeks earlier, police had confiscated his passport and laptop, and they questioned him several times, and eventually they told him, "You can leave the country, and we will escort you to the airport." He gave me a call and told me that he will purchase a ticket home, and he will call me back when he arrived at the airport. Anxiously waiting for hours, I sent him a text message that went unanswered. After many days, I finally learned that he was being held in Evin Prison, the notorious Evin Prison. 8 months later, in April 2017, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for alleged acts of espionage. Our son Xiaofan was barely 3 years old when his father was arrested, and now he is 6.5. Though Xiyue is the one sitting in Evin, our entire family bears the toll, and our son takes the hardest. Our lives upended as a result of decades-long hostility between Iran and the United States. Like many families here in this land of immigrants, mine transcends national boundaries. My husband was born in Beijing, China, and became a U.S. citizen after coming to the United States to study first at the University of Washington in Seattle in South Asian Studies, and later at Harvard for a master's degree in Russia and Central Asian Studies. We met in Hong Kong, and our son was born in Beijing. Our son Xiaofan is a Chinese-American dual national, and I'm Chinese national. Xiyue traveled in Tehran in 2016 as a part of his dissertation research on the Central Asian nomadic groups in the late 19th century and the early 20th centuries. When modern states began to form atop a fluid set of identities, boundaries, and economies. This was a very ambitious project that grew out of his long-standing respect for Islam and his love for Persian culture. Although Xiyue had reservations about traveling to Iran at the beginning, he was advised by his advisors from Princeton University and also other academic institutions that since the United States, Iran, and other nations had signed the Iran nuclear deal, times are changing, so he should be fine. During the months studying at the archives and the libraries in Tehran, Xiyue began to uncover a remarkable story. At a time when many states were doing their utmost to exterminate indigenous communities, Iran had developed a uniquely flexible system to integrate its very diverse populations. Contrary to a conventional narrative of Iran as eternally backward and authoritarian, Xiyue had discovered a moment of extraordinary political creativity and pluralism. The plight to Xiyue occurred before his planned return to Princeton. After he was summoned for interrogations, he emailed his professors for help. At the time, the State Department and the university believed that nothing worse would happen to him because he's just a student and did nothing wrong. Even after his sudden disappearance for a year, throughout the close trial to sentencing, people still believed that Xiyue could be quietly released at any time with the conclusion of his legal case. Xiyue's research, which had been approved by Iran's foreign ministry, required him to sift through mundane manuscripts that are century-old. The documents had nothing to do with any contemporary politics and were certainly not confidential. They were pre-scanned and compiled in a catalog and uploaded to their digital system that is available for readers to review. Yet, the Iranian authorities used his research as a pretext for a case against him, ostensibly to put pressure on the United States government. Archival research is an essential part of Xiyue's career as a historian. Only by immersing himself in the primary sources of history, he can read, he can write, and speak with authority. Xiyue decided to focus his dissertation research on Central Asia, which was once the nexus of the Silk Road, but its late intro period was less studied. Xiyue applied his insatiable drive to know something in a very meaningful way that wasn't known before. It is devastating for him to have left his family for 4 years already to pursue this dream. Xiyue is a diligent and passionate scholar. Even now, when books he can get hold of them, is one of his few moments amid harsh prison conditions. Sitting in the middle level of a 3-tiered bunk bed, crammed in a small underground cell with more than 25 cellmates. He cannot even straighten his back, but when he's able to have books in his hands, he's able to put out of his mind the noises and the smells from that cramped underground cell and imagine that he's coming back to his beloved Firestone library. When we can sometimes speak, Xiyue brings up memories of our son Shaofan, including the sunny sounds he made as a baby and the beautiful afternoons when he rode on Xiyue's shoulders on the way back from Yunnan. Shaofan, however, was too young to remember those moments. He is quickly growing up into a boy who is curious about the world, but find confusing about his place in it. We recently moved to a new apartment at Lakeside, the graduate student housing. In our first night there, Shaofan suddenly asked me, "Would Dad still find us since we have moved?" As a single mom in a 24/7 day-to-day crisis, I'm juggling many balls and experiencing huge anxiety hour after hour that I may drop any one of them, in the Xiyue's case, my job, and the responsibilities to keep the house running. I'm saddened by my son's remark and worried that all of my efforts would be meaningless if I were to fail my son. My husband and our family have become innocent victims in an apparently ever-intensifying quarrel between world powers. He is an academic researcher, a father and a husband. He's not a political figure nor a spy. It is fundamentally unjust that he continues to be treated as a hostage and a bargaining chip in this geopolitical dispute. We all know that anything is possible. It just requires the will. In July this past summer, President Trump's intervention in the superstar rapper A$AP Rocky's case at the time that he was involved in a street assault case under review by a Swedish court. After the president's intervention, the rapper star got released in no time. I believe that my husband deserved the same level of attention. The UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention forcefully stated that the spying charges against my husband are false and the conviction and the imprisonment were unjust. Xiyue was persecuted for his scholarship and criminalized for his American citizenship. Will his country, the United States of America, stand up for him? I hope the answer is a resounding yes. The voices of scholars are united in their support of Xiyue and the intellectual values that he embodies. However, scholars alone cannot secure his release. They desperately need the support of everyone who still believes that learning and cultural exchange still have a place in our world today. They should not have to fight and stand alone in this just fight against the persecution of scholars. Working with others around the world, the United States government must help defend the values that attract so many of the world's brightest minds to its shores. Securing the release of Xiyue would improve a commitment to the freedom of thought, international scholarship, and the cultural understanding that he represents. I implore Iran, the United States, and my home country, China, and all the members in the international community to come together to find a way to free this innocent man, Xiyue Wang, and bring him home to his family without delay. He has already been unfairly kept away from us for way too long. At the community university fair in May, my friends from the working group set up a table to raise awareness of the plight of my husband. Xiaofan, with his preschool friends, applied stickers bearing his father's image on it onto water bottles and give away these bottles to people passing by. And when people stopped by to hear our story, Xiaofan chimed in loudly. He said, "And my dad is not a bad guy." Like all children in this world, Xiaofan needs his father, and I plead for the gate of mercy to be opened for my husband's liberty. I feel very grateful for the support for so many friends and families in Princeton, and especially Princeton University and Xiyue's professors and academics across disciplines. I continue to pray that when Xiaofan blows out his birthday candles next year, Xiyue will be right there with us. Thank you so much.